Hi, in this episode of the Deep Dive series, I'm going to continue with explaining how Gimlet works in the background. I'm going to talk about the Gimlet YAML file and how that is translated into Kubernetes manifests. And I'm also going to talk about something that is called the master template in Gimlet. So let's get started. In previous episodes, you have seen how to configure a deployment inside Gimlet, how to change the typical variable parts of your application configuration. And you have also seen how you could drive these setting through the Gimlet YAML file. So if we navigate to a commit that is introducing the Gimlet YAML file to this repository, you can see the application configuration. This contains things that are different from application to application, but also static in one application, like the name of it, and also things that are changing between every release of your application. If you have seen Kubernetes application manifests, you probably realize that this format is a lot shorter than the Kubernetes manifest file. The YAMLs for Kubernetes are quite powerful. You could do all kinds of things, but what I've seen with my Kubernetes consulting work is that every company tries to reduce that boilerplate into a fairly smaller version of a YAML file, simply because people were just copying and pasting a bunch of YAML between projects, because it's all the same except really the variable bits that are factored into the Gimlet YAML file here. If we look at the cluster, you can see our demo app deployed, and if we really want to look into like how long a Kubernetes YAML file is, we could just get the demo app, get pod demo app, and the output is YAML. Then you can see that this is the YAML representation of a deployment. Now this deployed version has some metadata that Kubernetes is using, but at least half of it is what your developers or yourself you have to write into your Git repo and maintain over time to be able to deploy to Kubernetes. And one proposal in Gimlet is that you should use a shorter version, really, what you can grasp quite easily. So that's the Gimlet YAML file. And what Gimlet does is that this is the kitchen sink where everything starts, and Gimlet uses this file to generate the real Kubernetes manifests that are stored in the GitOps repo. So if we navigate to our GitOps repository, in the releases folder, we can see the templated version of our application. It has a bunch of files, but the values that we are providing in Gimlet YAML are then put into the right place in the manifest file. This template is using customize. You might use vanilla templates, just a large YAML file with variable templating, or you could use Helm charts. Not today with Gimlet, but in a later version. So basically what Gimlet does is that it takes the compressed version of the configuration and expands that into the larger version that is stored in the GitOps repo, and then Flux, the GitOps controller, synchronizes that to the cluster. Now, how does Gimlet know how this deployment looks like? Well, in the GitOps repository, there is a folder called the master template. Currently, there is only one in Gimlet. Basically, every application that you will deploy with Gimlet will originate from this template, and it provides all the configuration options that you can see here. So there is the master template, which you drive then with your variables, and that is then translated into the GitOps or Kubernetes manifest files. This master template is a customized template. It has a base which describes how an application deployment looks like. It has also overlays like the overlays for resource requests or resource limits, or whether you want to have a Prometheus scrape enabled, or you want to define an image pool policy, all these or environment variables. All this is part of the master template, and this template is going to be extended with many more options, with a nice explanation text as well, like people should not know the intricate details of resource requests and limits, like how to set them for a job, or how to set them for a real-time application, how to over-provision a cluster, how to protect the cluster from being overused. All this intelligence can be baked into and will be baked into Gimlet. So there is this master template which is going to be expanded, but since this is part of your GitOps repo, you could tailor it to your organization's needs. There is a questions.yaml file that holds everything together, and it's really the data structure behind the configuration view and the options available in the Gimlet YAML file. So let's take, for example, the Prometheus scraping. It's a checkbox. It has an explanation text, and if we search for Prometheus, we will see this bit in our questions YAML. So Prometheus scraping is the label. There is a nice description for that, whether it's required or not. And basically with the patch option, we define that if it's enabled, then please Gimlet apply a customized overlay on top of the base application configuration. If we look at the patch, then we will just see a typical customized overlay, which is identifying the deployment and then adding an annotation. If your company uses a different annotation, or you want to scrape a special port, or you want to scrape HTTPS, this patch could be extended. Alright, so in this video I showed you the Gimlet YAML file, which is your main control over your deployment. I showed you how different is that from the Kubernetes YAML format, and I also showed you the master template, which is then customizable for your organization's needs.